Dear colleagues, my name is Nikita Malyshev and I am UN Partners Associate. Today's webinar is an introductory overview of the key elements of public-private partnership in Russia. The investment mechanism of public-private partnership is used for implementing complex, socially beneficial projects of varying scales. As of 2021, approximately 2,800 projects involving either concession or public-private partnership agreements are being implemented. A significant amount of these projects is implemented in the sphere of communal services, water and heat supply. However, the most expensive agreements are traditionally signed in transportation infrastructure and IT. On average, concession agreements are concluded for a time period of 12 years, with some spheres, for example transportation and social services, representing an even longer average duration of around 20 to 22 years. In 2020, a report published by the Ministry of Economic Development of Russian Federation contained a calculation that PPP projects comprise only 1.6% of the total Russian GDP. This figure was compared with 6.6% in the UK, 8.1% in Canada, and 6.9% in New Zealand, which demonstrates that there is still broad space for developing these mechanisms of attracting private investment. Public-private partnership can be viewed from two perspectives. On the one hand, there is the narrow approach that views only two investment mechanisms as PPP. These include concession and public-private partnership agreements. On the other hand, there is the broad approach, which labels all investment mechanisms involving a simultaneous participation of a public and a private party as PPP. According to this approach, the traditional mechanisms must be supplemented with such quasi-PPP mechanisms as investment contracts, life cycle contracts, rent involving investment obligations, and corporate PPP. This approach is different from international practice. Under Russian legislation, PPP is used when either concession or PPP agreements are meant. In contrast, internationally, PPP encompasses all investment mechanisms that involve a simultaneous participation of both public and private partners. Regulation in the sphere is predominantly represented by two federal laws, namely Federal Laws number 115 and number 224. These laws cover the procedure for concluding and implementing the projects. However, the actual execution of obligations under the agreements must be consistent with the general legal requirements covered in the Civil Code, the Land Code, the Budget Code, and other sector-specific legislation, depending on the sphere in which the projects are implemented. Furthermore, a decent regulative authority is vested in the hands of local governments, which are particularly active in passing sector-specific regulation. For example, in the sphere of communal services. Subject to a few restrictions, both models are available for foreign investors. The central difference is that 115FZ allows direct participation of foreign legal entities as a party to an agreement, whereas 224FZ only recognizes Russian registered companies. Otherwise, Russian legislation establishes the principle of equal treatment of foreign and local investors, making most of the subsidies and guarantees available to both types of investors. Some of them include a guarantee of minimal profit under the federal law on PPP agreements, guarantees under investment protection and promotion agreements, ad hoc incentives that may be granted by regional and municipal authorities, stabilization, or the so-called grandfather clauses. The central difference of the two mechanisms is the model of ownership in relation to the objects of the agreements. 224FZ allows the title to the objects to be transferred to the private partner. Under 115FZ, the title stays with the public party. This essential nuance crystallizes in the differentiated lists of items that may form the subject of the agreements. Generally speaking, PPP agreements are aimed at those elements of infrastructure that can be owned by private parties, whereas concession agreements are oriented towards the more critical elements of infrastructure that must be kept in public ownership. The lists are outlined in 224FZ and 115FZ, respectively. This is also the place where the central limitations on foreign investors are outlined. In regards of concession agreements, foreign investors are prohibited to participate both directly and indirectly in projects involving IT-related objects, Russian military-owned property, and hot and cold water supply infrastructure. PPP agreements cannot be signed with legal entities controlled by foreign investors in relation to IT-related objects. Concession and PPP agreements can be initiated by both public and private parties. In case of a public initiative, the public party may announce an open or a closed tender for the conclusion of a preliminary developed agreement. Also, an option of concluding an agreement via passing local normative act is available to authorized public authorities. In case of a private initiative, the procedure is implemented via a submission of PPP agreement draft and a proposal for concluding such agreement to an authorized public authority. Some examples of PPP projects involving foreign investors include Speed Highway Road M11 Moscow-St. Petersburg with a total amount of invested capital exceeding 76.8 billion rubles, which equals to 880 million euro, which involved French construction company Vinci. Pulkovo Airport reconstruction in St. Petersburg with a total investment of more than 1.2 billion euro, which involved German Fraport AG and Capeluzos Group. Construction and operation of the motorway Western High-Speed Diameter with a total investment of 212 billion rubles, which is around 2.6 billion euro. The special purpose vehicle Northern Capital Highway involved Astaldi Construction Company and GPB Infrastructure as parties to the project. Here you can find a few useful links containing basic information on PPP projects in Russia. First of all, there is the Invest in Russia website, which contains information on the incentives that are available to foreign investors and a general overview of the legal framework in the sphere of investment. Secondly, there is the Ministry of Economic Development of the Russian Federation website, which contains a broad collection of normative acts that may be of use for foreign investors. Furthermore, on a daily basis, the Ministry publishes valuable analytics and news that may be of great interest for foreign investors. We would also recommend the Invest in Russia Regions website, which describes all the major projects that are currently implemented on a regional and municipal levels. Finally, you can also visit our own website, where you can find a large number of analytical materials available in Russian language. In recent future, we are planning to extend it with new analytics in English. All in all, PPP is a vibrant sphere of Russian economy. The government is particularly interested in attracting long-term investment from private parties, which is why the relevant legislation is being constantly modified. We are welcoming all questions on Russian PPP and are ready to provide expert advice on structuring and implementing PPP projects of all scales and industries. Thank you for your attention.